Hi, this is Bob Cox. Let's make a color wheel this morning. The kind you usually see in art books. We'll create one and we'll learn a little bit about mixing color while we do it. So we'll start with the primary colors. That is red and yellow. And the last primary color is blue. They're called primary colors because you can't mix them from anything else. You have to have them to start with. Red, blue, and yellow. If you mix each pair of these primary colors, then you'll create what are called the secondary colors. They're the ones that come between each of the primary colors. So if we mix blue, let's say, with yellow, which I'm doing here in my palette, I'll produce a color midway between them, and that'll be green. So let's get some yellow and make a nice middle value green here. And there it is. Now if we take a red and we mix that red with some blue, then presto, we will produce purple halfway between red and blue. And last, as you might expect, if we mix red with some yellow, which is the color next to it, we will produce some orange. So that goes like this. Yellow and red make orange. So those are the colors you usually see on color wheels, and that's how they're created, by mixing each color with the partner next to it. Now let's talk about mixing things that are across the wheel from one another. Those are called complementary colors. They're opposite each other on the color wheel. So let's start by mixing some yellow, let's say, with what's opposite it, which is purple, and see what that produces. And that makes kind of a dirty looking brown color. It's more gray or more neutral than either the purple or the yellow by itself. Here is blue mixed with orange. Makes a little bit different neutral. And then we'll mix red with green, and that'll produce yet a different color. But all of these are neutral or grayed down colors. So that's a good way to gray down a color, to make it less bright, is to mix it with something across the color wheel from it. That'll neutralize it a little bit. So here we mixed the green with the red, and we mixed blue with orange, and purple with yellow. Now let's talk about how to mix colors. There are 4 basic ways that you could mix the colors in your painting. And the simplest way, the most obvious way, is to mix 2 colors in the palette. So let's just take a blue and a red and mix them together in our palette. We'll do a good job of sloshing them around till they're well mixed, and then we'll just paint that mixture onto the watercolor paper. That goes like this, and if we did a good job of mixing them together, we should get a pretty uniform patch of color. In this case, a kind of a purple or a violet. There's the colors we started with, ultramarine blue and a nice middle value red. Now if I take that same red and paint it over a dried square of the ultramarine blue, you'll see that I get a color that is less bright, less red, and more purplish than the red by itself. This is called glazing. When you paint one color over another color which is dried on your paper. I'm going to add a little water here because I got it a little too red, so you can sort of see the blue come through from underneath. Now if I take the blue ultramarine, paint it nice and juicy on my patch here, and then while it is still wet, paint the red over it from the top and just let it drool down and run across the blue paint that's still wet. That's called granulation, or you might call it wet glazing. Produces beautiful deep looking colors. They have kind of a 3D look to them. The last way that we might mix is to mix colors on wet paper. So I'm putting some clear water down. So anything we put on wet paper is going to blend and run together. The idea here is to put different colors onto this patch so they do mix somewhat, but you still can see the original colors. So there's some blue, here comes some red, and yes, they will mix and make some purple, but you'll also still be able to identify the colors that we started with. That creates a nice varied look. It's a beautiful thing to do where you want to change colors and create interest, maybe in the side of a building or any big area like that. And you could do this actually on dry paper if you paint a juicy wet patch like I'm doing here with blue paint, let's say, and then paint a different color. I'll use the same red and let it touch the wet edge of the blue paint. Have to do this before the first color dries. And then wherever they touch, they're wet, so they're going to blend together. And those are the 4 basic ways you can mix. So give all of those a try. Mess around with the color wheel and get familiar with it. And happy painting to you. Have fun.